Welcome to the Vantage HR Influencers Podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Vantage Circle, the simple and AI-powered rewards and recognition platform for employee engagement.
Welcome to yet another episode of the Vantage Influencers Podcast. I'm your host, Sanjeevani Saikia. Today, we'll discuss how gamification is changing the game in HR and why it's so important to discuss. Businesses constantly seek innovative ways to attract and retain talent and keep their workforce motivated and growing. This is where gamification steps in. It's not just about making work fun, but about leveraging our innate human traits, our competitive spirit, our hunger for recognition, and our thirst for growth and challenge. Gamification in HR can lead to increased engagement, improved productivity, and a more positive work environment. To explore this subject further, we are joined by Harshit Upadhyay, Senior Manager People Strategy at Publicis Sapient. With his wealth of experience and expertise, Harshit will provide invaluable insights into the application of gamification in the workplace. So let's begin our conversation. Hi, Harshit. Thank you so much for joining in today's conversation.
Hi, Sanjeevani. I'm more than happy to be here. Glad to have been invited to have a conversation with you.
Pleasure is all ours. Before we dive into today's topic, role of gamification in HR, I'd love to hear about your professional journey so far.
Sure. So I come with over 12 plus years of experience in the HR space. I've completed my MBA with a specialization in HR. And after that, I joined Infosys as a management trainee. During the first couple of years at Infosys, Sanjeevani, I got the opportunity to work on different facets of HR, like setting up the HR shared services, several HR digitization projects, the compensation and benefits space, performance management, amongst others. And then I got the opportunity to move to the US, wherein I worked in the capacity of an HR business partner, and worked on several exciting projects focused on, the localization strategy, change management, and setting up, various new HR processes, for the US region. That stint kind of gave me a well-rounded and an international exposure. Once I moved back, I took up the role in the organization development team at Infosys and worked on several areas of talent management, created interventions to enable employees to build on their digital fluency in the new age skills, right? And a lot of gamification was actually used over there, for employees to really build on their skills. And of course, I also led, the manager development and the listening ecosystem charter. So after I kind of spent over a decade at Infosys, having done so many different things, I really wanted to experience the world outside. And took up the opportunity in the people success team at Publicis Sapient. I'm currently a senior manager in the people strategy team, where I am responsible for the people function for some of the industry verticals, and with a primary focus on building creative talent solutions, strategic people consulting, integrated talent management, and of course being a culture champion. So yeah, it's been an exciting journey, and I'm quite proud of it.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us, Harshit. I really appreciate it. So with your permission, I'd like to begin today's conversation on the topic.
Absolutely.
Great. Hiring the right people is crucial, but it's often easier said than done. I believe that's where gamification steps in, turning the whole recruitment process into something more than just shifting through resumes. So I'd like to know from you how exactly gamification can really spice up the recruitment journey. Is it through some interactive challenges, skill-based simulations, or engaging assessments? And Harshit, also, what kind of advantages does it really bring to the table?
Absolutely. I think that's an interesting question. And I truly feel, the most impact that gamification truly has, Sanjeevani, is in the recruitment and the talent acquisition process. And if you speak to a lot of candidates today, right, especially Gen Z and millennials, right, they will actually highlight to you that the traditional hiring processes of interviews can be very boring, right? And I think what gamification does is it makes the recruitment process more fun and engaging. And a lot of times what it can also do is attract top talent that may have not even considered applying for a job otherwise, right? Because all of these, young talent, the techies to say, so they're all very well networked and connected, right? And when they see that in an organization is coming up with an interesting assessment process, right? They feel the fun of it, they feel the thrill of it, and they'd like to join it, right? And what we see and what we're seeing increasingly is that, gamified assessments, like quizzes, puzzles, simulations, whether it's coding exercises, hackathons, right? They can actually offer a far more dynamic and a holistic way to evaluate candidate skills, especially around, like problem solving abilities, decision making, teamwork, right? And they actually go, like you rightly pointed out, they go beyond the traditional resumes and interviews because they truly reveal how a candidate actually reacts under a pressure situation, maybe in a simulation game, right? Or how are they collaborating when you give them like a team building exercise, or how are they thinking creatively? So I think that's how it truly helps. The other piece that what we see in organizations is I think gamifications is also helping reduce the time to hire, right? So see in a traditional process, what happens in Jeevani is right, there'll be multiple rounds of interviews, right? For a recruiter to coordinate with different people to get the hiring managers, right? It's just so time consuming. So what happens is that couple of the entry level steps, right? The gamification actually just helps you identify the right candidate for the job. So you're eliminating some of the steps, and then you just know that you can go ahead with this candidate. So it makes your process faster.
Yes.
The other way, which we see, and I have personally seen it benefiting a lot in the hiring process, is through referrals, right? So gamification can actually help succeed a referral program for hiring, and it can be extremely gratifying. And it also encourages healthy competition within existing employees, right? So employees, earn a referral point or a rewards every time there's a successful referral that they have given to the organization. And I think in turn, what it does is it creates a sense of being included in the growth journey of the organization, right? So that's how you actually also create pride amongst people. And I think, and in all of this, what happens in Jeevani is that somewhere you're also creating a brand, right? So when you do these gamified elements in the entire process, like points, badges, leaderboards, right? Different candidates seeing where they are in that, the whole gamification journey, it can foster a sense of achievement, competition, right? It keeps, and when I say competition, it's healthy competition, right? And it keeps candidates motivated and invested through the whole process.
Yes.
And what it really does is it leads to an improved candidate engagement, satisfaction, and I think also stronger employer brand. I think that's very important, right? It creates a stronger employer brand. And often, right, Sanjeevani, we always talk about the candidate side of the picture, right? And a reality today that plagues a lot of organizations is, when you try to go and do hiring, right? When you're probably on a growth journey and you want to hire large numbers, keeping your hiring managers engaged is also equally difficult. So what you can actually also do is, gamify the process for the hiring managers as well, right? So you basically bring in elements of, badges, points, and leaderboards for the hiring managers, right? So for those who are actually doing quality interviews, right, where you're seeing that a lot of candidates are being converted. So you kind of recognize these hiring managers in larger forums, and I think it creates an excitement, in that group as well. So just to kind of summarize, I think gamification and recruitment and the whole talent acquisition process offers benefits, I think, both to the company and the candidate, because I think it creates an engaging experience, which can give you, the top talents. It attracts top talents. And for the organization, I think it helps you, accurately select the right fit for the job. So yeah, I think it has huge benefits for the talent acquisition space.
Okay. Now, as you know, I guess, it's a fact pretty much that every manager kind of loses sleep over employee engagement. I think it's something that they keep on thinking about. I'm pretty sure with that. It's not just about keeping folks happy. It's about keeping them invested and excited about their work. And that's where I believe gamification comes into play. So Harshit, please help us understand. Yeah, please help us understand what are some of the effective ways to implement gamification in the workplace to boost employee engagement? And perhaps more importantly, what kind of impact can organizations expect to see on things like morale and productivity when they incorporate gamification into their HR strategies?
Yeah. So I think before I answer that, Sanjeevani, I think it's very important for us to understand how gamification can actually enhance employee engagement, right? And this is the question that comes to so many people, right? When you're talking about introducing any gamification for any HR process.
Yes.
I think what gamification does is the mechanics of gamification activates three core elements, for our own personal motivation system, right? So first, I think, all of us have a need to be autonomous, right? So we have this desire to direct our own life, right? It's a given. So what gamification actually allows you to do is it allows you to choose a path, right? Where you know that, yeah, this is what I want to do. This is what excites me. And I'm going to go on that, right? Secondly, the second thing is our need to feel competent, right? So the desire to be demonstrably effective. So what games actually allow us to do is that, allows us to experience progress every time we are making, we're moving up a level, right? Through a gamification process. So we feel that we are mastering the art of that. And the third is our need to feel related, so the desire to be connected with others. So games allow us to work with and against others, right? And helps us build a community around shared interests. So I think keeping that in mind, right, when you understand how gamification truly activates employee engagement, I think you can then see various processes within the employee life cycle in an organization where you can actually influence engagement, right? And I think to begin with, the first place where you can actually have a strong impact on engagement is to gamify the new hire onboarding process, right? So you can use gaming features such as leaderboards, point tables, and badges, right, to have new hires complete important first 30 to 45 day milestones, right? That could be around important content that we want them to go through, important mandatory trainings that we would like them to go through. But it also creates, a spirit of competitiveness amongst all of the new hires, right? And successful organizations, who have great onboarding programs actually leverage gamification to the core to get this done, right? They build team-based gaming assignments, that promote better engagement and integration. And I think what a lot of organizations have also started doing is they've started customizing experiences for new hires by personalizing the gaming environment based on the roles, the responsibilities, and actually the work unit that that individual is going to be joining, right? So when you personalize that experience, people truly feel excited and engaged, in their start, right? And I think, there are so many other processes across the employee life cycle, like a performance management, like learning and development, where if you actually articulate the goals of what we want the gamification process, to achieve, it can help, right? And I think some of the ways in which you can do that, right, is have recognition badges, right? So a digital recognition badge that an employee can earn from various achievements or milestones that you have defined. They can flaunt it, they can display it on their profiles, their signatures, their social media handles, right? And it just adds an element of a status and recognition, right? Companies are creating leaderboards, that assign points to different tasks or achievements. You rank employees based on their points. The idea is just to, encourage healthy competition amongst employees. A very interesting thing that a lot of organizations today are doing are introducing the concept of point-based rewards or virtual currencies, right? So what happens is employee earns these points, when they've accomplished a certain milestone, they get, certain currency. And as they reach a certain currency that they've accumulated or certain points that they have accumulated, they can choose, gift cards, they can choose additional
Yes.
incentives, time off, all of that can happen,
Yeah.
right? And one other place which a lot of people don't talk about, where I think engagement also gets influenced through gamification is through employee wellness programs, Sanjeevani, right? So
Yeah.
increasingly, what a lot of organizations are starting to do is that they're trying to see how gamification is promoting healthy habits, right? It's becoming like a shared goals, right? So you have challenges around like walkathons, right? So where people are tracking steps, and you're saying that folks who've done the highest number of steps are going to be awarded, right? Or you have something which is called as, hydration battles, right? So you actually promote, water intake, right? Or, healthy eating. So, and it's not just, beneficial for the physical health, but you're also enhancing social interaction and, team building. So I think, yes, right. If you look at it holistically, right from onboarding to people wellness to, performance management, learning, everywhere, gamification can come into play and truly enhance employee engagement if it's done with the right objective and the goals.
Yes. So again, now we all know that learning doesn't stop after you land the job. In fact, continuous growth
Mm-hmm.
is the name of the game. And
Yes.
Gamified learning, for that matter, somewhere I think that's like turning professional development into a video game, complete with levels, challenges, and rewards. But Harshit, does it really work at the end of the day? And can having a gamified approach actually make you better at your job? And do you have any examples of companies nailing this whole gamified learning thing?
Absolutely. See, I think gamification, Sanjeevani, can be a really strong lever to drive upskilling or reskilling, in organizations. And I can actually take an example of, my current organization, Publicis Sapient, right, where we have actually created a learning program for a group of employees in the junior career stages, where the idea is, that they're focused on the professional development of skills of the now and the next, right? So we've essentially defined some skills that we need these folks to have in the job that they're doing today, and those skills that they need to possess in the next, right? And then we've charted out a learning journey which is actually is OTT inspired, right? So it's essentially we've created like seasons, and for every skill that we want them to go through, and each of these seasons have 5 to 6 learning episodes, right? It comprises of e-learning modules, it comprises of role plays that have been recorded and uploaded, trainings, podcasts, right? And what really
Yes.
happens is at the end of every week, there are weekly episode ratings leaderboard that is published, right? So it essentially says that all the people that have gone through this, where are you on that learning journey, right? And then leaderboard is published. And there are badges that are given to people once they've completed every season, right? So after a season one, after a season two, after a season three, and once you're able to demonstrate that learning into a work, and that's kind of validated by the supervisor, you actually get like a super badge, right? And then you get the opportunity to like feature in learning series, where it's published org wide, get an opportunity to get recognized in various R&R forums. So that's one example where we see it's actually truly working. But like you said, it has to be done creatively, right? It can't be very plain vanilla, right? So when you're making it creative for people, and when they're enjoying the journey and you're gamifying it in the process, I think they really appreciate that, right? And the feedback for it has been really great for us. The adoption has also been highly successful. So, so that's one thing that I see, right? Another example I can talk about is, how we are using leaderboard across the organization today, to drive completion of Gen AI trainings, right? We want most of our people to, go through the generative AI trainings. We're kind of creating leaderboards for different business units, to see where people are. And then those people who are, the leaders within that of completion of these trainings, we're recognizing them, on the largest of the company forums, right? So that's, another example that I can talk about. One more example that I can, that I have personally worked on, Sanjeevani, right, while I was at Infosys, right? And I think this is something that a lot of other IT organizations are also doing is, allocating points or virtual currencies every time an employee completes a learning module, a training, or a certification for the newer digital skills that we would want them to adopt, right? So you're essentially creating a learning journey for them. And we are telling them that, as you pave your paths on this learning journey, every milestone that you accomplish, you will be given certain reward points, right? And after you've earned a certain number of reward points, you receive something which is called as a skill badge, right? So a skill badge makes you look like an expert, right? And that gives you the opportunity to work on projects which require you to demonstrate those skills, right? You can also actually show off those skill badges to everybody and let them know that, yes, I have acquired this new skill. And as you've accrued more points, you can start monetizing them, right? So you give them in form of bonus, you give them in forms of, gift points, right? Some organizations are also giving them as additional vacation time, right? So I think all of this is, what I see is, learning is one place where gamification has truly actually helped, people chart out that path of acquiring new skills. And I think it's successful, to a large extent. But I think a lot more is also happening in this space, Sanjeevani, with, AI coming into picture, with more personalized learning experiences. I think it'll just take it a notch higher at that point in time.
Yeah. So while gamification offers numerous benefits, as you have mentioned, ensuring fairness and inclusivity is paramount to its success in HR practices. Again, organizations must design gamified process that are accessible to all employees, regardless of background or ability.
Absolutely.
So Harshit, what strategies should organizations employ to ensure fairness and inclusivity in their gamified process, and how they can potentially address any biases?
I think that's a great question, Sanjeevani, right?
Thank you.
I think it's really important for us to ensure that there is an equal opportunity for anybody to succeed in the gamification system, right? And the starting point of that has to be is that a lot of our gamification systems have to be accessible, right? It have to be accessible for people who maybe have are partially blind, who are visually challenged, or have color blindness, right? So uh, and today, technology is so advanced, Sanjeevani, that your systems can actually be made more accessible. So I think that's one thing that everybody should keep in mind, right? And
Yeah.
beyond that, right, I think it's when you're creating a gamified system, you have to account for what are the roles, right? What is the level of seniority? What is the type of work that's going to be done, right? Now, a very simple example, right? I'm in HR, and if I'm going to be, given a gamified system for a full stack developer, I may not succeed, right? But if I'm creating something for people who are joining my team, in the HR space, and I'd like to gamify, something around that, right? So I think it's important to understand what are the people, what is your target audience. So I think that's very important. The second thing where actually your gamification automatically becomes fair and inclusive is if you're aligning it to the business goals, right? So uh, it's important that you align your entire gamified process to the business objectives, right? It's whether you're wanting to improve scale, sales, whether you're wanting to get people to upscale, whether you want, people to probably enhance customer service. Your gamification strategy has to support the broader goals, right? And it automatically then eliminates the bias in the system. The other thing is, which a lot of times people feel is not important, is that I think a gamification process should be kept simple but challenging, right? And and there was something that I had read very early on, is that the best games are those, and those are the games that people love to play, are that are easy to understand but difficult to master. So ensure that the system that we are creating, or any gamification process that we are creating, the rules are clear and the system is not overtly complex, right? So what happens is when you maintain a level of challenge, that keeps employees engaged over a time. So that's the other thing. The most important fact I would also say is providing immediate feedback. So, like I'm sure, all of us have played video games, right? A lot of people are still love playing, are into gaming. They provide instant feedback, right? So your gamification system has to let employees know what they are doing in real time. The moment instant feedback comes into picture, people know that, yes, the system is giving me real-time feedback. It is bias-free, and it can actually help them be motivated, and it also lets them know that they can course correct at any point in time. So I think that's the other thing. I would also say that when you're talking about gamification, a lot of times people make this mistake that in the process of making it competitive, they forget that the essence of bringing that in the first place was collaboration.
True.
Right? So a little bit of competition is healthy, but it's also important that you continue to foster a collaborative environment where employees are working together towards a common goal, right? Towards, where they're facing similar challenges, right? They are sharing their rewards. And what happens is when you do that, everybody feels that they were included in the process. So I think that's something that's very important for us to, keep in mind. And lastly, I would say is that use data to iterate at any point in time, right? So if you are able to monitor how your employees are interacting with the gamification elements, right? And if you see that there is any element of bias in the, in the process, then I think you just need to stop at that point in time and refine your approach, right? And I think if you can see that what works for one team, what works for one department may not work for the other, and you're open to adapt, and you're open to iterate and refine your system, I think it at the end of the day people feel that it is bias free. So yeah, these are some of the things that I'd like to call out.
Yeah. Now, shifting gears, Harshit, please underscore the significance of utilizing gamification data for HR decision making. So, we've got all this data from our gamified HR processes,
Yes.
be it the scores, feedback, participation rates. But how do we make
Mhm.
sense of it all? And more importantly, how can we use this data to make smarter decisions about hiring, training, and the overall HR strategy?
Absolutely. So let me start with hiring, right?
Yeah.
and I'll give a very specific example. So, it kind of becomes easy. So a lot of times, where we use gamification, Sanjeevani, is when we are doing campus hiring, right?
Yeah.
So we, go to campuses, we look at, hiring people, especially, whether it's engineering students, whether it's, when you're hiring in business schools or you're hiring for an MBA, right? Across the board, we'll go to campus. When you do gamification processes, tailored to, the kind of colleges that you're going to and, kind of field that you're hiring from, after a point, you kind of get a sense of data to see what are those colleges, where students are doing better, right? What are those colleges where we are seeing that a lot of people are actually clearing our assessments, right? So, and then that gives you two-pronged data. One is maybe students in this particular colleges are better, right? Or secondly, either your evaluations, gamification evaluation processes are too simple, right? So if you've corrected that, and then you start seeing that, yeah, there are pockets in which, there are people, regions, colleges where there's better talent available, then that the next time that your hiring strategy is going to be, you're probably going to go to those campuses, right? So you don't have to then go to all of the campuses again, because you now identified that we are getting better talent at the time of hiring from campus from a certain set of colleges, right? So that's one way how, we look at the data, right? Within organizations, I think gamification can provide us really valuable database insights on talent, skill, and performance, right? And a lot of us, right? A lot of organizations today are pivoting towards skill-based talent management, right? Gone are those days where, we were looking at a job and a role, right? We're now looking at what are the skills that are required for a person to be successful and to be able to do a particular role or a particular job, right? So that skills is very important. And, gamification helps us understand that, employees, who are the employees that are leading on the skill-based journey, right? Who are the ones who are upskilling? Who are the ones who are, really, on the get-go of completing training, certifications, right? And what we are doing is that leveraging that data to say, these are the people that we would want to give challenging projects. These are the people that we would want them to, work in that space. And a classic example is AI, right? It is not, a lot of organizations can now see that who are the employees that jumped onto the AI bandwagon early on, right? And today are probably, learning, today are probably iterating, are working on test cases, right? So that I think helps. And what it helps us to do eventually, Sanjeevani, is that it helps us to then differentially reward people so that those are the people that feel appreciated. They feel that, yeah, they're growing. And, and it's also eventually helping us in increased retention. I think, so in a nutshell, Sanjeevani, I have to tell you, right? I think how gamification really helps us is that it gives us data around, what truly motivates employees, right?
Yes.
It helps us understand, if somebody is driven by competition, somebody is driven by more learning opportunities, or somebody is driven by, traditional, rewards and recognition, right? So, and then it allows us to kind of truly tailor the rewards mechanism accordingly. So yes, gamification is become a big source for us, to understand employee personas and, and tailor our process accordingly. So yeah.
Yeah, great. So, Harshit, we have reached the end of today's episode. Do you have any message for our listeners? Our listeners would be delighted to hear it from you. Also, our audience might want to stay in touch with you post this podcast. So it would be great if you could tell them how they can reach out to you.
Absolutely. So I think the message that I'd like to say is, to every HR professional that's out there, Sanjeevani, is that, continue to keep an eye on gamification. Right, as we are moving into the future, gamification as HR is going to really change beyond just leaderboards and badges, right? So AI is actually going to come into picture. It's going to truly influence gamification through hyper-personalization, a lot more advanced micro-learning, a lot of social gamifications, right? So there's going to be a lot of advancement, in this space. It's going to kind of, be very exciting to see, how this changes. So I'll just tell everybody that, watch out for that. And of course, you can be in touch with me, through LinkedIn. If you just search for Harshit Upadhyay, Publicis Sapient, you'll find my ID out there, and I'm happy to be connected with everyone.
Great. Harshit, thank you so much for joining in today's episode. Having you, it was truly our pleasure. Thanks a lot for joining in.
Thank you, Sanjeevani. It was great being here, and thank you for inviting me once again.
Thanks for listening to the Vantage HR Influencers Podcast. Please do subscribe to Vantage HR Influencers Podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and our YouTube channel for new episodes.